right, welcome. I'm in Canva today. We're going to do some basic layout blocking. I'm going to kind of show you, I'm going to do a little social media graphic for a back to school sale. That's the client brief. They wanted to have a promo to advertise their 10% off the entire store sale. So I have all of these elements that I collected from the client email, all the necessary ingredients or type that needs to be included in this ad. Everything is up to us in terms of finding a really good, compelling layout. So I have our little elements here. So this is obviously the headline. We can go ahead and start stacking things. So our headline will obviously be on the top, and we're going to have our promotion, probably 10% off first, and we're going to kind of shift that toward the middle, and our fine print will probably be way down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and make this smaller because fine print doesn't really need to be, just needs to be legible. I'm going to go ahead and slide that down at the bottom. And let's make this headline much, much bigger. So let's go ahead and increase the font size. I'm going to increase that quite a bit. Oop, that's a little too dramatic. It's all about finding the right balance, and your headline can definitely overwhelm any photo that we may use. And 10% off, that's kind of our big promotion. So I kind of want to maybe use some color and some different typography to highlight that a little bit. So let's go ahead and source some photos. I have some photos I've already kind of found of some school graphics, and we can test out a few of those photos to see how we like it. Let me go ahead and drag this in. So this is kind of photo option 1. We can have, maybe make this larger and put all of our copy in the middle center there. So that maybe the text can kind of be in the graphic as opposed to the graphic being in a separate box. So let's see how this works out. I'm going to need to make this black. So let's go ahead and switch this to black to make sure it has enough contrast. This is a small circle space, so I may want to maybe crop this photo. Let me click on this. I'm just going to hold down Shift and make this a little bit bigger. Well, see, you can't see all the items, so let's make it a little bit smaller. That'll probably be perfect, however I just did it. So we'll drag that back, and this is just an idea. It may not be what we finally end up with, but I'm kind of liking the overall balance and composition so far. I'm going up here and I'm going to center a line. And let's kind of see how this is looking. So let's go ahead and shrink that. Let's make this a little bit smaller. I think the headline is a little too out of balance. Shift this photo a little bit over to the right. It'll let me, there we go. So just kind of doing elements that are, let me make that 10% a little bit bigger. I think that's really important. That's kind of our call to action, our motivation for the user. And since this is a social media graphic, you can't go too big with the call to action. People really got to be able to see this in their news feeds. And of course, our small print can now become 2 lines. I'm going to center a line. Let me make sure I select it all. Center a line. Let's make that black, and we could probably make it like a little bit lighter of a color so it doesn't at all compete with the headline. So you see how you could still read it, but it doesn't compete with the black. So I want to make this a different color. I really want to make this pop. So what can we do? Let me see. Let me make that all caps. And let me put a little bit of spacing. Kind of let that spread out a little bit. So we got to figure out, how can we make this pop? Well, as we saw in the previous videos about color, let's use a little color to make this pop out a little bit. So let me grab, I'm just going to go to my elements. I'm just going to grab a shape here. Let's do just your typical square, rectangle. Let's go ahead and make a big banner across the top here. And we're going to put this in the back. Okay. Now we're going to highlight this, and let's try to bring out one of these colors, which is pretty much the entire rainbow, entire color wheel. So let's try a red, maybe a pink or a purple. See how that's really popping out at you now? And I wonder if I make that a black. Let's make it match. And let's make this a little bit transparent so you can see a little bit of the graphic so there's not such a sharp block, sharp cutoff of the photo in the block. So I'm just going to go to transparency, just reduce that a little bit. We just really want it to show up well over the background, the text. So that's a little too vibrant of a purple. I'm just going to slightly edit that a little bit and maybe make it a little darker. Maybe grab some more blues. Yes, that's a softer purple. And I believe it saved my thing there. This entire store is competing with 10% off. So I'm just going to highlight this and I am going to maybe find a different font. So let's see if we can find a lighter font here. And now we could play around with fonts because these are just kind of the default fonts that we were left with. So okay, so there's not enough white space. So as we learned, white space is incredibly important. So let me drag this down a little bit. And this is where all, it's just after 12 years of doing this, you kind of learn little tricks of the trade of, finding the right balance. It just takes a little bit of practice to find out what works, what doesn't work. Let's make this a little smaller. I'm not necessarily married to this Cooper Hewitt. Maybe just experiment with some. Maybe that's the right one. I do believe I don't think a serif font works very well. It's a little too busy. So let's find another sans serif font that would work really well. And maybe that was the right one. So we're just this is kind of a playful, youthful font. So let's see. That might work for this type of advertisement. Let's just try one more, and if not, I'll go back to Cooper Hewitt. But for right now, let's try this one, League Spartan. And I wonder if we do an all cap. That might be a little much. I kind of like the lowercase. It's got a softer approach, and I might even make all of it lowercase because it'll make everything a little softer. Actually, nah, let's go back. I like that. Let's go back to the original Cooper Hewitt. I just wanted to experiment to see what would look the best. And I believe that's back here, Cooper Hewitt. Okay. We're going to keep this, but we're going to also make it a little smaller. There we go. So now it fits nicely in the space. We'll probably make this fine print one little shade darker. Just make it a little darker. I don't think it's quite readable enough. That's perfect. And there's still not enough white space, I think, between this top section and the 10% off and the same down here. So let's increase this and add a little more white space, breathing room for everything to breathe. Go back up. I'm feeling okay about this so far. I'd love to tweak it a little more, but I think just for kind of showing you basic blocking, I'm pretty happy with this overall look. We can experiment with other photos and have a second option to send to the client, or do A/B split testing on social media to see which graphic tends to engage the person to click through the most. So there you have it, some basic layout and blocking.